Hi, and welcome to the first of 3 parts where we go through everything from basics to features and how you can automate and streamline the workflow. In this part, we will focus on the basic workflow. We go through some basic concepts and then take you step by step through the flow, where we give tips and highlight certain buttons and features you can use. Of course, there is so much more to learn and explore, and to learn even more, we recommend you visit our online manual. There, besides the manual, you'll find all of our release notes, as well as a link to the videos that go through our features. You can find the link in the description. So, shall we get started? Let's start by taking a look at the workflow and how it works. Here's the basic workflow. Of course, there are different ways you can work with various features and degrees of automation, but today we will focus on how it looks across these steps in the flow and some setups connected to that. So first, we have interpretation. Many of you use ExFlow data capture, but our other services works as well. And to demonstrate what can be done in the first part today, I will show it using ExFlow data capture. And what you interpret there can make your work in ExFlow in Business Central so much easier. After you've interpreted a document, you import it into ExFlow AP and it lands in the import journal. Here you ensure that the document is prepared for the approval workflows and add accounts and so on, either manually or with functions. And the next step is for your approvers to approve the document. You create the document in the import journal and it then moves to the approval status, where you track the progress of the approvers, and the approvers usually approve the document in the approval web, but this can also be done in Business Central. When the document is fully approved, you post it, and then you can find it in ExFlow History. Let's start with some basic information related to the workflow. So for example, you need users with permissions, coding rules, and approval rules. So here's a quick overview of the basics. Here are the permissions for your users on the web, showing what they can and cannot do. So let's start to go and walk them through. The first one is approver, which can approve, reject, or set a document on hold. And then you have approver power, and they have the same as above, but they can also forward documents, add or change coding. And then you have super, and they can do the same as above, but they can also see all approved documents in ExFlow History. And then you have admin, and it's the same as above, but they can also do settings that applies for all approvers in ExFlow Web. And on a user card, you find it under web permission role. That's where you see what permission level they have. We also have some coding rules, and on the user card, you also set up the coding rules. And with coding rules, you give users permission to specify what the user can and cannot do if they have a role and permission to make changes on a line. There is, however, 3 different setups of coding rules. So first we have ExFlow general coding rules, and these are rarely changed and can be considered the basic rules. To manage these, you primarily use the other 2 type of rules, and user coding rules and denying coding rules, that is then. So you rarely touch these after the installation of ExFlow. And ExFlow user coding rules, these allow you to set filters for things like accounts, dimensions, and more. For example, you can specify that a user can only use a certain group of accounts or specific dimensions. And these rules are set at the user level on the user card and can be applied per company. You can set multiple rules per company, but only 1 rule per user. And on the user card, this is located under user coding rule ID, as you can see here on the screen. And ExFlow denying coding rules, these can be applied to all users or specific users or groups. And with denying coding rules, you specify what the user is not allowed to do. For example, a combination of values they cannot use. For instance, a user may not be allowed to leave a dimension empty when using a certain account. And you can also use this to define whether a user must leave a specific dimensions empty for certain amounts and so on. So you can set multiple deny encoding rules for a company in many various ways. Something else that is advantageous in a workflow is approval rules. We won't go into this setup of approval rules, as there are other training videos that provide deeper insight in this, but you might also have heard about approval groups. So I will explain the two here to clarify the difference, as it sometimes can be confusing. So approval rules are used to automate and simplify the selection of approvers, and each rule is selected based on the number of matches it gets, which filters out which rule then should be applied. And the rule with the most matches is chosen. And the most common setup involves an approval rule containing approval groups. So each user belongs to an approval group, which is automatically created when you set up an ExFlow user with their email address, meaning each user gets their own approval group when you create them. And you can also create approval groups, for example, if you have an IT department where someone from IT needs to approve a document. In this case, it's a first come, first serve scenario if multiple people are in the group and only one person in the group needs to approve the document, even if there are 4 approvers in the approval group. So in an approval rule, you have approval groups and approve documents. And an approval group can consist of anywhere from 1 to multiple users. And this is how an approval rule looks like. And on the bottom of the page here, you can see approval group. So this is where you add your approvers in the approval rule. You can also build approval flows based on dimension owners. So what exactly are the ExFlow dimension owners? Well, this is another way to build an approval rule framework, and it's particularly useful if your approval flows are based on a combination of multiple dimensions. So for example, if you have 150 stores and 30 regions, and each store or region are designated persons responsible for approvals, then it could result in many approval rules for each possible combination. So with ExFlow dimension owners, you can simplify this by only setting up a single approval rule that dynamically handles all of these combinations. And the approval groups does not have a static member or members. Instead, it dynamically fetches the approvers based on the dimension owners. And you can read more about this in our manual. Now, let's go into the Business Central to explore the workflow. We'll go through the workflow now, along with some tips and tricks. So we'll start in EDC, or ExFlow Data Capture. Some of you use it, but it also works with other services. For those of you who do, here are a few tips. So we start here on the start page. You can, for example, move the columns by dragging them back and forth like this. And it will be the same the next time you log in. However, if you, for example, clear the cache, it will return to the original settings. You can also remove columns that you don't use, or add if there's some you want to see. So click on this, and then you can just tick or untick boxes like this, and then just push somewhere outside the window, and it will change according to what you want to see or not. You can also filter the columns and then remove the filter. So you filter in the fields up here, for example, and then you remove the filters by clicking on this box. Let's open a document to look at some tips and settings as well. So let's go to this one. If a field has not been interpreted and you need to teach the system, you can do it in 2 ways. For example, the invoice number in this case, either you can, for example, the value that you want to interpret, double click on it, or you can push Control and then mark the value you want to use, for example, like this. If you have certain vendors with fields you don't use, you can hide or displace them using the eye icon. Note that you may have a different setup from when you implemented the system, so meaning you might not be able to do this or only with some of the columns. So you can see a little eye up here. If you click here, you can see that I can see some more fields, and next to some of the fields you have blue eyes. This means that you can toggle away the fields if you want to. So let's say I don't want to see this field. Then I just click on the eye, then OK. And then I click on the eye again, and you can see that it went away. If you want to add the field again, you just click on the eye, and then you click on the eye next to the field you want to add, and the eye again, and it will be back. If you click on the pencil next to the vendor name, you can, depending on whether you have permissions or not, take a setting here named Allow Complete Documents to Bypass Verification. And what this here does is that if you have a vendor who interprets correctly in all fields, the document will automatically be submitted to BC for import there. So you will not need to verify the document here in EDC. There was some tips here in EDC. Let's move to Business Central to take a look at the flow in ExFlow there. So we will primarily look at the flow step by step today and some tips and tricks through it. There's so much more to explore, but here are some things you can do and how it works. So we start here on the home page. I have my home page set as the ExFlow economy role. So if you don't have that, it might sometimes feel nice to save bookmarks for the most used pages in ExFlow. And I have my bookmarks up here. If we want to add ExFlow reference code as a bookmark, for example, we can search for it. And then out here on the right, you can see the bookmark. So if it's blue like this, that means it's a bookmark. Otherwise, you can tick this and then you bookmark it. You can also find anything related to ExFlow in the BC menu as well. So if you click on this, you can see everything related to the role I'm using. But if you don't have the ExFlow economy role, you can click on Explore More Roles up here. And there you see the ExFlow menu, for example. If you're missing certain items here on the home page, you can also add and remove certain things by personalizing. So then you click on this icon and then personalize. And if you hover over here, for example, you can see that some boxes are red and some are gray with the red outside. If you then click here, you can push show to show the box, for example. Or you can take it away if it's visible and you don't want to see it. And when you're done, you click over here. That was a bit about what you can do on the home page. Before we move on to the next step in the flow, let's quickly take a look at user setup. So let's go to ExFlow users. Here you have all my users. I won't go through everything, but it will cover what we get many questions about. So for example, at the top here, you find something called Add Replacer. So if you want to add a replacer for someone, now I was on the line for Anders Andersson, which means that I'm adding a replacer for this person. So either you choose here if it should be for all companies, or you can choose which company. I was on the line for Anders Andersson, so here is his user ID. And then I add the replacer up here and start and end date and then push add replacer. If you want to remove some replacers, you can see here that I have 2 on this user. You stand in the line which you want to remove, manage, and then delete. If you you can change the user's fact box, so if you want to change that, this is where you do it under user fact box sizes. So this is only if the user, for example, is working in Business Central then. And this is the fact box size. The fact box is the one to the right, for example, where you see the invoice and the discussion panel and so on. You can also send a reminder. So here you can see the icon for that. It will go out to the person you have marked. So in this case, this first line, and then I click here, then it will go out to that person if that person has something to approve. And you need to set up a job for it to work, and an email will be sent out then summarizing all the documents that are missing approval. Under actions here, you find something called batch create ExFlow reference codes and ExFlow reference, create ExFlow reference. So if you want to create an ExFlow reference code for an existing user, you can either do it for all users through the batch or for individual users. The selected user will become the first approver in the reference code, and the code will use the user ID as the reference. So please note that this only applies to the company you are currently working in, and we will go over ExFlow reference codes in the next part. So let's open a user card. Let's go to this user. Here you pretty much have the same buttons on the top of the page as on the first page. And then you have the user details down here. You have a setting here called full document access, which gives the user access to all ExFlow documents in the company you have. And to the right over here, you can see email reminders and Business Central notifications. And the Business Central notifications will show up on the first page, and the email reminders will be sent out to the email added on the ExFlow user card here. And you can choose to send reminders for unapproved documents, for the discussion panel, and reminders for contract invoices. If you would like to stop a user, for example, if the user is leaving the company, then you click on unblock users here. This box will appear, and you fill out information here, such as the new user. And this needs to be completed to avoid stopping any documents that are currently under approval. And you can also grant the new user access to all historical documents, and as well as replace the approval, the user in the approval rules and coding rules. And this is especially useful, for example, if you have a coworker that is leaving the company and then a new one is starting in the same role. And if they then need access to the history and should be added to the same approval rules and so on, then you don't have to do all of this job manually. Then you can just click these two here. Here on the lines, you see under web permission role, which company the users have and what permission in each company. So this permission is on the web, so what the user is allowed to do on the web. You also have user coding rules here on the right, and you can see which one it has. And then over here, you also have previously replaced by user, so you can see if the user has previously been replaced by another user. You also have maximum amount for final approval here that you can use. Let's go back to the workflow. That was a little bit about the ExFlow users and where you fill in things. So let's say now that you have completed interpreting a document in EDC or any other program that you have, then it's time to enter the import journal and import the documents. So here are the journals that I use, and an ExFlow import journal is used to import documents, which then creates a document for approval. So you can use various functions such as codes, manage any action message, and create your documents for approval here in the import journals. You can work with sorting the documents into different journals, for example. You can select to only include, for example, expense invoices or purchase invoices. You can also set up configurations that allow you to automatically create lines or documents for specific groups of documents under here. And you can read more about this in our online manual on the documentation platform. And you can see the link in the description below. So let's start by entering one of the journals here. So let's talk a little bit about some of the buttons and functions that you can use here. Under Home here, you have something called auto-coding suggestion and auto-coding suggestion automatically. And the first one is manual choice. And this function allows you to receive automatic coding suggestions or to enter them manually. And it is based on historically recorded documents and works for invoices and credits. And to use this service, you need to set several configurations, so contact your support or check the online manual for more information. You also here have Open PDF Viewer in New Tab. So if you click here, you will open the PDF in a new tab, allowing you to work in different windows, for example. So you have the invoice then in one window and Business Central in the other. And also we have vendor card. So you can here open the vendor card directly linked to the document for the line you're on and see the details there as well. And then you have ExFlow Vendor Setup. So here you can find settings connected to a vendor and ExFlow. And you can now access this page here in the import journal as well as from the vendor card, and you can also find it by searching for it. Under Create, you have two options here. So when you're going to create documents, you can either do it in a batch here, which means all the documents that are ready to be created at once, or you can also create them individually. And you can select multiple documents that you want to create and create only those, for example. So if you only want to create one, you stand on the line and then you push Create Invoice here, for example. If you want to create several, you can tick here and then select More and this one and then Create Invoice, then it will only be those two. Or for example, then batch create all that are ready to be created. Under Actions here and Imports, you have something called Download Import Line Excel Template and import lines from Excel. So if you have a document with many lines, it can sometimes be easier to work in Excel. So here you have a template that you can download, and below the one where it says Import Lines from Excel, you can upload the document when you're finished. And there's a minimum amount of columns that you have to fill out in the Excel template, which is what type, number, and quantity, if it's a GL account, for example. You also have Get Latest Coding from Vendor here. And by pushing this, you will retrieve the latest posting. You can bring up the most recently posted document and then copy in the lines with the accounts. On the functions here, you have something called Save Coding to Vendor. So if you want to save the accounts you have set on the line as an ExFlow purchase code directly to the vendor card, you can do so quickly and easily here. We will also talk a little bit more about this in the next part. And then you have transfer selected documents to another company and transfer selected documents to another batch. So the first one, if you have more than one company, you can move documents to another one before you create the documents. And the second one is if you have more than one journal, you can also move documents to another journal before the document is created. You can also batch update posting dates here. And then you have other functions to use here as well. The bottom one here, contract. So for example, if you have received a document that is going to be linked to a new contract, ExFlow contract, you can create a new contract directly here via this line for the line you're on. So we will then use the information at the main level that you have filled in, such as purchase code, approval rules, and so on. And this will then automatically be populated to the contract. So we will go through more about this ExFlow contract in the next part as well. Under related, we have several options as well. On the document here, you can, for example, see the order card. You can see the contract if the line you're on is linked to a contract. And you can, for example, see the bank account for the vendor. To the right here, you have the fact box. And you can open and close it by clicking here. You can resize this. Either you can change it permanently if you know what size you want. And then you go to the ExFlow user card, which I showed you earlier. And that is also if you want to change it for everyone, you can do it under ExFlow settings. If you want to change it here and now, you can use these two. You can also move the boxes in the fact box in the order you want it to be, or hide and show them as well. And you can personalize just as you did on the first page by clicking here and then personalize. So then you can see it turns red around the boxes, and then you can, for example, hide it if you don't want to see it. And then you can also drag and move them in the order you want them. When you're done, you click on Done. You also here have the discussion panel. And it's good to know that you can tag people here if you want to write to people and tag them so that they get an email or a notification in Business Central, depending on what setting you have set on the user card. So if you want to tag someone, you use this symbol and then you get a list of people you can tag. As I said, you can set it up on the user card if you want the user to receive a notification in Business Central or an email if it's tagged on a document. Something that is good to know is also that if you tag a user who works in the approval web, meaning not in Business Central, they won't receive the notification and won't be able to see the tag until you create the document. However, if you write to someone in Business Central, then they will be able to see it before you create the document. We also have incoming files. So here you can see all the attached files. You can attach on more files and download the documents, for example. You also see approval proposal. You can also see document details of header and line amounts here, for example. You can see here if it differs, for example. And you also have warning messages, which I have up here. So if you have a warning message to be processed, then you click on this arrow and accept all warnings after reading the message, of course, in order to be able to create the documents. And you also have some vendor statistics and more stuff that you can have here. So let's move on to header level. I will hide this when we look at this. So header level is what we call up here, and down here we have line level. Here you have access to a lot of information. You can, for example, see the action message up here. You can see the document information and the amounts and so on. You can see if it has a purchase code, reference code, approval rule, if it's linked to a contract number. And you can customize this section by displaying or moving columns as well. You can also add columns or take them away if you want to, and then you use this setting as well for that. Here you can also block a document. So then you click in this column, you can click in this window. Then you can see that it says creation or posting. So if you choose creation and you try to post or create these documents, then it will not be generated. So for example, when you try to batch create documents here in the import journal, you cannot create this document if you have chosen creation here. If you, however, choose posting, then the document will be created, but you won't be able to post it. Even if it's fully approved and ready for posting, then you cannot post it until you remove the block, and I will show you that in a bit. So this is the header level where you find the information such as that, but then you have the line level. And on the line level, you find the accounts and so on. And there you also have something called line where you can do some more stuff to, for example, invoice. So here on the line, you have show approval proposal to quickly add and remove approvers. And under approval proposal, you can, for example, copy the proposal, or you can make changes and then apply them to other lines. So if we go to this, you can see here under functions that you can copy approvers, and then you can choose if you want to do it to all lines or the previous line, for example. You also have available approval rules. You can switch there if it's a match to more than one rule. And then you can also see, for example, budget if you have activated that under here. You can also change and add columns at line level. It's the same procedure as above. So you click on this one, and then you can change the columns in the order you want, or if you want to move or show some of the columns. Let's move on to approval status. So after you have imported a document and then created, it moves to ExFlow approval status, and then it's available on the approval web for your approvers to approve. You can, as you could in the import journal, also personalize the whole page here as well on the columns and boxes. So up here you have information regarding header level, and you can, for example, see the status of the document. Another thing you can do here is to bring out the field for comments or rejected lines. So here you can see, for example, that if you have a comment in the discussion panel, on the line, or rejected lines, for example. So you can use the filter function to display only those that have rejected lines, for example. So if there would be something that you want to see, you click here and then filter to this value, and then you choose, for example, yes. And then it will show those lines that are rejected. You can see here that I have a line that is red. And when it's red, it means that the document is either rejected or that I have a document that's overdue. So you can configure a setting in ExFlow setup. And to do this, you go to ExFlow setup. And then you go here to escalation, and then you take this one. So highlight rejected and overdue documents. And then you set here how many days before it's due that you want it to be highlighted red. Under header level, we have document lines. Under here, it's down here, where you follow each line of the document to see the status of each line. So you can have different lines with different approvers, and then you can see that here, and you can see that it's changing then on the bottom here, what approvers I have per line. So in this document we're on right now, we have 3 lines, and you can see that, for example, it's approved on 2 of them, and 1 is still active. So then we're waiting on the last approvers here. You can see then under status that it's currently this approver that needs to approve the document. If you click on line here, you can, for example, remove, add, or change approver. So if you click on approval, you can see that here, and you can change it here. Here at the top, you can choose to propose new approvers if it's a better match. If someone has made some changes on the line on the web and you click here, and if the system then thinks it's a better match, you will get that match here. or you can choose to copy to all lines, which then copies all the approvers to all lines. Here, complete, you can choose to complete document lines or complete all document lines. So if you click here, you need to add a comment, and then you choose if it should be complete document line or complete all document lines. You can also restart root. For example, if a document has been rejected, you click on restart root. And here you choose whether you want to do this for the line you're on or for all the lines. And you can do this for the entire document under document lines here, or for one line under document line approvers. Document line approvers is down here. Next, we have copy to all lines. So if you have multiple lines, for example, on an invoice, and you want to change it so that the same approvers apply to all lines, you can make a change, which will result in different approvers then. So if you then want to apply that to all lines, you click here. And this will copy the same to all lines, so you don't have to make changes one by one on the lines, which means that you will save time. You can also see your deferral schedule here. If you click here, you see them directly, allowing you to avoid going into the card, so it's more efficient, for example. And then on the bottom, you see the document line approvers. And you can keep track here then, as I said, of who is the current approver and the status of different lines. So for example, you can see what approvers need to be approving the document. You can also control another few things over here. So down here on the line of approver, we also have the option to restart the approval flow. So you can choose from the line, but you also have the option to change from the marked approver or from all marked approvers. This means that you don't have to send it to all lines again or an entire document. For example, if there are 3 approvers, you can select from the second approver, meaning the first one does not need to approve again, and so on. So if you click on restart root, you get these options. So the first one here, restart line, it restarts the entire line for the line you're on. The second one, restart all lines, it restarts all lines, all approvers from the beginning, meaning I have 2 approvers here, and if both of them did approve, then this will make them both approve again. And then the third, restart from marked approver, it restarts from the approver you're on for that line. And the last one, restart from marked approver for all lines, it restarts from the approver you're on for all lines that have that approver. You can also approve a marked approver line here with this one. Then you click here to approve this line, for example. So when a document has the status approved, then you have to verify the document to see if any changes has been made to it. You can either do this manually, or you can set up a setting that does this in the background. And I will talk a little bit more about this setting in the last part, the third part. And the verify changes step, I will show you this on the PowerPoint in a bit. But let's say that a document was verified and no changes was made. Then the document has the status ready for posting. And you can choose to post the document in 3 ways, provided that the document then has the status ready for posting. And you can also automate this step. You can do it manually as well, but you can also automate this step by a setting as well. So first, if you're on the line of the document you want to post, you can either click F9 or post under actions here. You can also click on these dots and select more if there are several documents that you want to post, and then click F9. You can also post batch, and then all documents that are ready to be posted will be posted under this one. So let's have a look at the menu here in approval status as well. On the top here, you have several options to work with as well. And in the import journal, I showed a setting that where you could block a document from being created or posted. And you can see here that I have a document that has the status ready for posting. But when trying to post this, you will get an error message on the line if you have added the block from posting. So it says now this document is marked as blocked for posting. So to take this away, if you're ready to post the document, you stand on the line, then you click on card. And then you have ExFlow block document. Here you now see that it says posting, but then instead you push so that it's blank. And then go back to the approval status to try and post the document again. And then you either push F1, F9 or under action posting and then post, and then you click yes. And now you can see that the document is posted. You also have something up here called send reminder. The majority of you might have a daily email reminder sent out to your users about any documents that they need to approve, along with which documents that are currently relevant for them. But in addition to this, you can also add extra reminders whenever you need or want to. So you can either select to do it here, or go to ExFlow users and search for the user you want to send extra reminder to, if you want to do it to a specific person. Then you do it on the user card. Or you can select one or multiple documents here in approval status. So you mark the documents and then you click on send reminder, or if it's only one document, you click on send reminder. Then everything, if a user has something to approve, then everything that it needs to approve will be collected in one email sent out to the user. So if we say that a user has lines to approve on 3 different documents, then the user will receive one email with a summary of that. You can also filter on approver up here. If you click here, you can choose the approver group, so also meaning the approver, and then you can choose the status current, not processed, or all of the documents of that approver. Under actions, you also find batch updating posting date, and this can be used to batch update the posting date if you need to move a document from one month to another, provided it has not been approved and so on. And then we have posting, and here we have something called preview posting. So it's a function in Business Central, just like in standard Business Central, that allows you to preview the posting. And then you also have the fact box on the right, just like in the import journal. And here you can see the document, you can see incoming documents, and you can see the discussion panel. And when your document is in approval status, it is available on the web for your users to approve. Out in the approval web, and your users will approve the document there if you have not set the settings that it should approve in Business Central, for example. And we have some videos about how to approve a document in the web, and you can find the links to that in the description as well. And now the document is created, meaning that all messages that you tag someone in here will be visible for that user. And remember that you can set a notification to receive emails for this if you tag someone, for example. And that's it. Once you have posted a document, you will find the document in ExFlow History. I have it up here. So when you have posted a document, you can find it in several places, including ExFlow Approval Status History. So here you can search for documents. For example, maybe I only want to see the documents from a certain vendor. Then I can search for that vendor and I can see all the documents displayed here. When you click on the X here, you saw that the search was removed and all the documents came back. You can also use filters and search here. Then you use this function and then you have filters out here. Then you click on filter and you choose what you want to search for. So let's say I want to search vendor number and I want to search for this vendor, and then I get that displayed. You can save filters here. So for example, you can see that I have saved some filters here, but when you do a search and you want to save it, you click on this and then you have to name it. Then you can find it up here as well. And then you can also see the document here and discussion panel, for example. You also have ExFlow search documents. You have several filters to search for here, but you also have search columns. So if you click there, you can see the columns. For example, I have dimensions here that I can search for. So you fill out the information and then you click on apply filter to do the search here. We also have several reports that you can use if you want to. You find them here and they are connected to documents, users, and approval rules. And you can read more about those in our manual on the documentation platform. So that's it here in Business Central. Let's go back to the PowerPoint to go through verify changes. Yes. So the final step in approval status is to approve changes to a document that has been sent out to your approvers on the web and is approved by them, unless you have set up other automation settings, that is. Because you can set up a setting that runs automatically in the background to verify the changes automatically. So for example, here we have an invoice that's been fully approved. You can see in the status column where it says approved. So now we need to see if it has been any changes to it. So we click on verify changes to proceed with this document because we want to post it. But before we post it, we need to verify eventual changes. So in ExFlow, verify changes will display all the lines that have been modified or remain unchanged on the web. So when you see red values, it indicates that those values were changed from what was originally sent out. And the black values represent the new updated values. And you can see this on the bottom of the page. So if the changes are correct, you click on update document to refresh all the document card with the new changes, or you can click on update all to update all documents with changes. And once all documents are updated, this page will close automatically. The status will, after the update, change to be ready for posting. We have added a fact box in verify changes, and it allows you to view the document you wish to see. So you can access it by clicking on the fact box icon, and then you get the document on the right. If you want to reject the changes that have been made in a document, you click on the arrow next to approvers. It's located on the right, and you push restart approval process. You will then see a window asking if you want to restart from the marked approver or from marked approver for all lines. After that, a box will appear that is named discussion panel dialog, where you can write a comment which will tag the approver. And once you click OK there, the comment will be added to the discussion panel, and depending on what you choose in the first box, the approval flow will restart. We also have several different resources available to you. First, we have the documentation platform. It's our online manual. It includes our release notes and a link to our video tutorials. You can also find information about our other products here as well, such as the web, ExFlow Sales Order, CO2 Insight, and Travel and Expense. The video tutorials are short videos that introduce you to the functions in ExFlow. And the link is found on our documentation platform. Also, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to your support.